Welcome back, everyone. This is not another podcast featuring myself once again, Sipo Kwana, along with my two co-hosts, Ndima Silwana and Ramuz Msane. Like we're actually the Migos right now when I think about it. You know?
Not the Migos.
What do you think of that, cheese?
Not the one of them died, bro.
I'm just saying, like we're the Migos of the podcast era now, bro.
Uh,
But yeah, guys, we've got a very interesting topic with us tonight. We're talking about education with a specific focus on higher education, that is universities, EVT colleges, and the like. So I'll just start off with a few stats from the Department of Education and Training, which were compiled in 2017. According to the Department of Higher Education and Training, right, the distribution of student enrollments across various fields in the public higher education institutions in 2017. So this were the latest stats are as follows. You have students who are enrolled in science, education, and technology. They make up 29.9%. And then students in business and management are 26.9%. And then in the humanities side, excluding education, is 24.4%. And then in education, you get 18.8%. And then when you compare that to the global averages, the science, education, and technology sector, where some students are, make up between 25 to 30%. Business and management makes up 20 to 25%. The humanities, arts, and social sciences make up 20 to 25%. And education is 10 to 12%. And then healthcare and welfare, which includes nursing and medicine, gives you 12 to 15%. So these averages, what they do is they provide a general sense of global trends in the higher education fields of study. So South Africa's emphasis on science, engineering, and technology, you can say, aligns with global trends and possibly reflecting national development priorities. With business and management, you know that the popularity of business-related studies in South Africa is also comparable to global averages, which indicates a strong interest in commerce and related fields. And then with education, a higher proportion of South African students are enrolled in education compared to the global average. There's a strong highlight on a national focus when it comes to teacher training and education. And then health and welfare, enrollment in health related fields in South Africa appears to be lower than the global average, which does suggest potential areas for growth and increased investment. So, what is your first impression when you hear these stats, guys? I'll just start with my main homie, not my main homie, but you know the vibes, man. Ndima, like, what do you think about these stats? You see that there's a majority of students who are enrolled in science, engineering, and technology. What do you think about that? Like the makeup?
I think that's actually a really good sign. It's pretty promising because I think one of the main points that I was going to address regarding the topic of higher education is, as a country, we do need a lot more of the youth enrolling and participating in STEM, in science, technology,
Mm-hmm.
education, etc. So that does seem hopeful as far as I can tell. And I would like to see more of this happening because in order for us to actually truly be like a competitor on the world stage, we have to offer um, a huge, I don't want to say influx, but like we have to offer a big percentage of people who are going to contribute to the tech industry because that's clearly where the world is going, right now.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think that I would like to see more of a growth of numbers in students who also go into the trades, so into trade schools. So
Yeah.
because not every realistically, not every kid is going to make it into the sciences and into tech and into finance, etc. And that because like some students are geniuses, but some are just extremely hardworking and are very diligent, and they're able to actually occupy those faculties. But not every kid is going to be that, and not every kid wants to be that. So the question then becomes, what if you're not going to become an accountant, you're not going to become an actuary, you're not going to become a doctor, etc. What are you going to do? And I would like to see a bigger number of students who are going to the trades. So that means training to become plumbers, carpenters, electricians, etc. Because I think we've kind of looked at those professions with a bit of shame for some strange reason, because there's no glamour. You don't get to put on a suit.
Mm,
You don't get to be in an
mm,
air
mm,
conditioned office. But
mm.
those trades pay. They pay really well.
True,
And
true.
I think particularly as Black people, we really need to look into that much more often. As much as I would like to see more kids going into STEM, we need to see more kids going into the trades, because what I've observed with, for example, when it comes to white South Africans in particular, whether they're lower class, middle class, or upper class in terms of financial background, what you find is that middle class and lower class whites tend to gravitate more towards the trades, which means they also become entrepreneurial, so they become quite financially stable by the time, like a couple years after high school, if not a few years right after high school. Whereas with us, it seems like we're all rushing towards university, whether you're rich, middle class, or poor. And the problem is that, sure, if you're from a rich family and maybe you go to study university and maybe you struggle to find employment, your family can be like, oh, well, we spent that money, but we can afford it. But then what happens if you're middle class or you're poor and you went to university when you didn't really need to, but then you struggle to find work? What happens then? You know, you end up unemployed and then you have to go back home, and it's that same cycle that we've been seeing. So just to get back to the main point, I'm happy to see that we're seeing more participation in STEM, because we do need to
Mm-hmm.
become competitors, Oxalai, at the end of the day. So it looks optimistic from my perspective, but yes, I would also like to see more young people going into the trades as well, because not everyone's going to be a scientist, not everyone's going to be in finance, etc. What do you think, Ram?
100%, 100%. Just before I get to Raz, you are absolutely right with that because not all of us have the capability. We're all born with different levels of intelligence and also different types of intelligence.
Mm,
Depending on the student's natural inclinations, that's where the child would go. Varsity isn't always the best option for some people, and we must always like look into other alternatives. With
mm.
that being said, Raz, what's your take on the whole thing?
Yeah, man, Ox. Greetings to everyone. So, Ox, okay, I do agree with obviously science and technology being driven in South Africa. Definitely, those are qualifications that are needed. But I think looking at what Utandiro was saying, and you also touched on the matter of everyone running or rushing to go to the traditional universities. The reality is, I know most parents would advise students to try to be a lawyer, try to be a doctor, and so forth. However, we need to also face the reality of those professions. Number one, do take quite some time because becoming a doctor takes about 7 years. Same with becoming a lawyer can take you plus minus 5 7 years because you still have to write board exams, you still need to go do pupillage. So it's not a straight route. It will need resources. So if you're coming from a family where already maybe struggling here and there, it will be a bit difficult because pupillage alone, you're going to have to go and work for a law firm for 1 year and you're not going to get paid. So you're going to need support from your family. You're going to need support from society or community, whoever can assist you to get through that year. What Utandiro was saying with trade, that's why they introduced TVT colleges. And I know, like you were saying, people have the stigma behind, no, activity colleges won't take you anywhere, their degrees don't, or their qualifications are not as strong as your universities. But I find that not to be true, eh? Because on my side, most of the people I've seen who've went to these colleges are actually doing quite well in life. Because what happens is the difference there is they teach you a skill. So whether
Yes.
it's fixing doors or you being a welder or whatever it could be, and you go and you use that skill. Some people just open up a business and they'll be like, you know what,
Mm.
I offer the service of putting doors, and people build when they build houses, call that person to assist them put doors in there. So I haven't seen much people who. Plus, these people also give people work while they're there. That's the difference. So in most
Yeah.
of these colleges, people are working while they're actually studying. It's more practical. So this traditional route of wanting to go to university and study beyond the book, there's nothing wrong with that. And obviously the universities are also great. Like Walks was saying, and like you're saying, Dandira, we're not all. I for once, I prefer reading. I prefer research. So I used to love history at school. And even now, if you give me a subject or something where I have to do a lot of reading and research, I love that. But if you give me numbers, I dread spending time on numbers. So, and there's people who prefer that. And those people prefer maybe the maths route in life. And then there's people who prefer
Hmm.
maybe just the research route. And then you get people who are just artists. People who don't prefer reading, who don't prefer doing the numbers, but they do prefer perhaps maybe creating art. And those people, there's music schools. We have music schools now, private institutions. So if you look, government's been speaking about how they're asking for assistance from the private sector and private institutions to assist them with this not being able to profess to these are taking everyone because now they want to go to a particular university and that university didn't accept them or told them to wait another year, and sometimes these children get involved in things they shouldn't be involved in that gap year. All right, so yeah, people should just do research. Just a quick one. There's a guy who was studying at Wits. All right, so the guy was studying at Wits. He was doing, I think, computer science. And after a year of doing that, this is just to show people that this sharing between TVET and public universities, it's not really, it's just a fallacy. Because this guy was studying at Wits and he did his research and realized that, no, man, he can actually make more and do more of the field he wanted to go into if he goes to a TVET. Then he went to do electrical engineering at a TVET college, and he's happy. And we're talking about someone who wasn't pushed out. He did his research and realized that, you know what, actually, this is not particularly the best route for what I want to do. So it really depends on the person. But yeah, man.
100%, Raz. You both made valid points. I'll just touch on what I think of the whole situation. Yes, STEM is very important in the times we're living, especially now that there's a lot of AI integration, artificial intelligence. There's a lot more demand for those type of hard skills like computer science, computer engineering, data engineering and whatnot. And it takes a certain type of intelligence and a certain type of character to get in to that type of industry. And varsities do offer those courses. So do some other community colleges. And I feel like with the way the world is going, most people want to get into that sector, but also in terms of TVT colleges, like Raz said, like there will always be a demand for skills like plumbing, welding, engineering, and so on, and carpentry, and so on and so forth. So, like most people who may not be good with numbers or may not be good with words or that sort of intellect, but are good with their hands, they might be better suited to go to TVT colleges. And with that being said, like myself, for example, like post-matric, like towards the end of matric, I didn't really know if I really wanted to go to varsity like that, you know. But it took took for me to actually start applying and realizing, okay, maybe I can make this varsity experience thing work, you know. And it wasn't all smooth sailing because I knew I wanted to be involved in business some way, somehow, right? And I always thought maybe accounting would have been the way. But then when I didn't make the cut for accounting, I discovered economics, which I felt like was better suited for my inclinations. So with that being said, it's like when you're 18, 17, you might think you want to go a certain direction, but once you embark on that direction, you may realize that, hey, maybe this isn't the path for me. And some people might think they are stuck or might be in a dead end, but there are always alternatives to segue into something that you would much prefer to do. Like, let's say you're in second year and you're an you studied economics, but you realize that, hey, maybe economics isn't the way for me. You don't necessarily have to abandon economics entirely. You can go into something like business management where you will use the content that you've learned from economics to segue into business management. And so with that being said, gents, what have your experiences been like in varsity in terms of the courses that you studied? And was this always something you wanted to study before, or did you make a U-turn along the way and discover something that was more suited to your inclinations? I'll start with you, Raz.
Jesus, folks. Yo, that's another question. Okay, so when I entered the varsity setup, I originally wanted to study LLB, Bachelor of Laws. And that was 2014. Then there was this whole debate in the law industry that lawyers that are graduating with a straight LLB and do their articles on boards and go practice are not fully competent in the field because LLB is on honors. So they were like, okay, people have to first do an undergrad, which could be a BA law, it could be a BCom law, whatever it is. But it's not a force. You could still take the straight LLB route. So I took the long route. So I decided to be like, okay, I'll do an undergrad. So I started with the BCom law. And when I started with the BCom law, I must say it was very challenging. It was very challenging. I don't think I've ever worked that hard in my life, actually. I don't. I'm still trying to get back to that groove of how hard I used to work in that 3 years because I barely slept. I was always up till 4 a.m. I maybe sleep that 3 hours, be at campus at 8 a.m. And I was just focused on the goal. And everything went great, I must say, because I ended up, after my first year, they gave me a scholarship. My final 2 years, I was on scholarship. And yeah, obviously, you know, when you're scholarship, you have to keep up with the results. So I had to obviously maintain the results because at that time I was doing straight A's. So yeah, that went well. Graduated record time, everything went well. And then I started with the LLB. The LLB things were different because, so when I started the LLB, I started working. And like Walks was saying now, I started discovering other things. So I started doing like licenses. You know, I've got like a few licenses under my belt. I did a few certificates. You know, like I think now I've got like over like 100 something certificates of various things that I feel like, or skills that I feel like will be necessary for things I need to do. So yeah, with the LLB, I wouldn't say I've been cruising, but I was focusing on other things like Walk said that I discovered over time might assist me in my future while also pursuing LLB. So yeah, right now I'm my final year LLB and yeah, I'm gonna see how that works out, but it's still tough, still challenging. But yeah, it's been great. It's been great. Varsity is the best.
No, Nandir.
Yeah, so my journey was pretty it was it varied because close to the end of high school, I was one of those people who I didn't really know what I really wanted to do yet. But in
Sure,
terms
sure.
of an idea of what I wanted to do, I did want to go into psychology initially. But I eventually changed my mind and I ended up deciding to go into media studies. So I wanted to study film, you know. And me being naive at the time, I didn't actually understand what the demographics of schools like that tend to be. When I got there, I very quickly came to the realization that these schools, and I don't want to generalize all of them, but those schools in particular were where rich kids went. Those are definitely
Sure, sure,
a playground
sure,
for rich kids, right? And not to
sure.
undermine it in that sense, but I mean playground as in it's where a lot of rich kids go to actually pursue that discipline. And when I talk about rich kids, then you start to come to the realization that it's pretty expensive. It's pretty pricey to go to those schools because they are private. And so my parents ended up having to pay a lot of money. And I don't come from money. I'm middle class. My parents worked from nothing and they found their way, you know, but pretty quickly I came to understand that I didn't need to do this because it's one of those industries where you need to go straight into it. You don't necessarily need to go the channel of formal education. You're better off going straight into
Sure,
the industry and learning as much as you
Yeah.
can and equipping yourself, you know. But then other than that, I also went on to equip myself with other skills. I mean, I even went and did a an RPAS, which is a drone operations license, right? I did that. I think this was probably about 2 years ago, 3 years ago now, you know, and it was pretty interesting. But even then, I came to the realization that it's one of those qualifications where it doesn't just end with one. It's sort of like getting your bachelor's and then going towards your master's and your honors, etc. So there's terminologies like the visual line of sight, beyond visual line of sight, etc. So those are the like levels of the qualifications that you need to go through, and it gets pricey the more you have to go into it. So I found that I just found myself equipping myself with different skills that I could use because in this economy you have to learn to be versatile is what I really came to learn is that you can't
Yeah.
stick to one trade. Not unless that one
sure.
trade offers you yeah, not unless that one trade offers you a lot of return on investment, but other than that you need to diversify and try your best to master wherever you can and make it work, you know. But there was even a point where I considered doing a gap year, but you know, Tina Zabanaba Mnyama, we don't believe in that thing for the most part. It's like you propose that to your parents, and you know, and realistically, it's like because when you come to the end of high school, not everyone really knows exactly what they want to do. So what is the better option? Do you just go and do whatever, or do you take the time to decide? And I think when it comes to the gap year thing, that's what I think a lot of our parents kind of miss. It's that you take that opportunity to kind of figure things out, not to go on vacation or do Paul and it's to figure it out and to find out where is your lane. You know, let me go and do or go and job shadow with this particular person in this industry for a year and figure out what exactly I want to do so that I don't waste my time, I don't waste my parents' time, etc. So yeah, I do, and I like to go back to what Uox brought up, is that
Hmm?
you need to try and find your lane. Just because one thing doesn't work for you, or just because maybe you didn't make it into this particular discipline, doesn't mean you should abandon it altogether. Try and find something that works for your disposition, or that works for your strengths, so to speak. So
True.
yeah.
So, like,
Dandila,
take
quick
away
one.
what you've learned. Yeah, go
Mm.
on, Raz.
I just want to ask him something. The drone certification you're talking about, is it
Mm.
that Microsoft? Because I saw you did also like a Microsoft something, what license? Is that? Was that something else?
Nah. I don't know what that is. What is Microsoft?
There's a license I saw on LinkedIn. I don't know you did. There's some other license you did.
No, I think you're talking about the
Okay, and I'll
drone
tell you,
license.
it's the drone one. It's the drone one.
Yeah.
Are you moving, dog? Jesus Christ.
Hey, dog. You
On
gotta
the drone
diversify,
level.
bro. Hey, bro.
Yeah.
And I'm still gonna pursue it further because like I said, it's called VLOS, BVLOS. So VLOS is the visual line of sight, BVLOS is beyond visual line of sight. So it's all like pretty complicated, but it's basically it talks about the range that you're able to work in within that industry, just to put it kind of simply.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's pricey. That's the thing. That's the reason why I kind of put it on pause for now, because I still want to pursue it further in the future because it costs money, like everything does, unfortunately.
Nah, but
Everything
dude, you got
costs
a
money,
beautiful
man.
mind. You got a beautiful mind, though.
Thanks.
Keep it up, because I mean, drones is something South Africans are not really fully, equipped and researched on yet. Some
Fully
are
tapped
here,
into.
they're trying to learn about it. Yeah, they're trying here and there. For you to tell yourself that, I'm going to try tap into this, and shout out, dude. You're hitting the drone section. All the best.
Yeah, wait. So, what was I going to say? I can't even remember, but we can just move on to the next topic, which is more aligned with what we're talking about. We talked about our own experiences, right? And what we've learned along the way in terms of, is this really for me or not? And with me, like I said, I discovered that maybe economics is the way for me, but also along varsity, I discovered I had a lot of free time, right? Because I didn't graduate in record time. So during probably my second last and my final year, I had a lot of free time on my hands, because I was only doing a few modules per semester. So I discovered, not necessarily discovered, because I was journaling the entire time, right? And then I was having a discussion with one of my friends, and we were talking about a particular subject. And I told him, hey, dude, I actually wrote about this. So I read it to him, and he was like, yo, dude, you should like start a blog or something. And that's when I discovered like I had a real knack for writing. So I did that for some years, but then like as my articles got longer and longer, people generally lose interest, right? So that's how I never wanted to lose that skill, but I also wanted to do something that is more engaging, in terms of media. And then that's how the podcasting came about, because I do reckon myself as a solid communicator. But in terms of making this a career and with all our experiences, guys, like what type of advice would you give maybe your younger self in terms of the career pursuits that you want to go for and the type of education that you need? Like if you could go back to your 18-year-old self, I know I would go back and say something like, don't be in a rush, just because you picked this particular discipline right now doesn't mean that you should stick to it. You should stick to it for the long term. There's still a lot more you could discover. There's still some other untapped parts of you that are creative that you can explore while you're pursuing what you're pursuing right now. So, what would you say about that, Ndima?
I think you actually stole mine, because I would also be like, take your time. Take the time to consider. And this goes back to one of those let me not say ideas, but it's the fact that close to the end of high school, I don't think most people or most kids are actually equipped to properly make the decision of, what am I gonna do after high school? What do I actually want to be in life? Because first of all, you're not even fully developed. You don't have
Yeah.
the capacity to actually make that informed enough decision. And maybe some do, but a lot of kids actually have, or are lucky enough to have, the support of highly informed parents, right? That can advise them on what choices that they should make and why, And I think those kids really benefit from that, whereas a lot of our parents and a lot of other parents, as much as they did their best and they provided everything that they could, a lot of the time they weren't entirely equipped to truly inform you on what your next step should be. because they should be the ones to guide you in that direction. Because as I said at the time, you don't really know exactly what you want to do and why. So I would also say take your time, but also understand that time is of the essence, so it's like find that
Mm-hmm.
balance of you have time, but also understand that time is like it's wealth. It's like you need to use it effectively and actually make the best decision for yourself going forward. And don't follow your friends, don't follow what everybody else is doing. Find your lane, make sure it pays, make sure it offers you some kind of peace of mind and purpose, because purpose, more than anything, especially for a young man, is one of the most important things. You need to feel a sense of fulfillment and purpose, and to know by this is where I'm going, and this is my pride, whether it's gonna make you a ton of money or not, but like, do you feel like you're in the right place in doing what you're doing, so I do agree with you. I say I would go back and tell 18-year-old me, but take your time, make an informed decision, don't rush into anything.
100%, bro, 100%. And with what you said at the beginning about I stole your thing, bro, great minds think alike, G. That's why we started this podcast. So you can't say I stole your thing, bro. Like, come on, G.
And I was
Come
about to say the same. I'm like, these niggas, they took everything, dog.
Like, come on, bro. Like, come
Nah,
on. What about you, Raz?
Now, but Doug, yeah, guys, you got to took everything. Circling back to both of your points, dude. One, people must do their research. I tell myself obviously do research, dude. I feel like if I did my research, I probably would have went a different way. Maybe still did the same things, but in a different way. So do your research. Speak to people in university. Speak to friends who you know in university. Try to get research and programs. There's so many programs that we don't even know about. So like, go find out, do your research, and see what works for you. Secondly, also just to circle back to what Udandiro was saying, it's a heavy point to the parents and people and the children in matric right now. For parents, please, let's not put pressure on children to select qualifications that maybe you feel like are good for the child. Get the child to like Dandira was saying, get the child to check what they like, see what are their talents, see what your child's abilities are, and then try and assist them in performing in that aspect, because you can't force someone who's an artist or who's good with drawing to be good with soccer. And you can't force a soccer player to be a lawyer. So in society, we need all these people. We need soccer players, we need lawyers, we need doctors, we need drawing specialists. So please, let's not all force children to go the traditional route of being a doctor or a lawyer and so forth. Yeah,
100%,
basically what.
Raz. Like Drake's dad said, man, Mike never tried to rap like Pac. Pac never tried to sing like Mike. Just be
Find your
you,
lane.
man. Find your lane. And I just want to add something with what you guys said. I'm not sure how many schools do this and to what extent they do it in, or do it at, rather, whatever. Like, in terms of career guidance and having career workshops for high school students, I feel like
Yeah.
that is something that would really help kids, and just broaden their minds and open their minds in terms of what areas of work they could explore post high school. And I feel like that is something that would really go a long way. And then in terms of like careers, right, and your first year of work, like, how much would you say the skills that you learned or acquired in university, how much of those did you apply once you really started working your first job?
Interesting question. I would say, ne, you don't
Mhm.
get, in my experience, you don't get to use all those skills in one go. And like,
Yeah.
let's say you get your first gig after varsity, you're not gonna get to use every aspect of those skills within the first year, You're going to use certain skills, but I think it's also pretty useful, practical for you to go straight into whatever industry you want to get into and feel that pressure, because that pressure can get real, especially if you were used to that university life, because we know that some people go through the varsity route while also working. So they'll work like a part-time job. Maybe by second year or third year, you're working like a part-time job while studying. But a lot of other students only have that pure university experience and don't actually venture into the working world up until they graduate. And then when they do graduate, it's kind of like a culture shock, because it's like the pressure's on all the time, time is money. People don't care about your feelings. You have to deliver at the end of the day. And maybe you'll find that first gig where your employers or your colleagues actually care that you are new and that you're fresh. So they'll kind of treat you with some tenderness. But there are also going to be other places that will treat you you're just like another foot soldier and you have to deliver. They don't care that you were in third year last year or whatever. They just want you to deliver. So what I'm getting at is, I think what I learned the most in that first year of working is that you get to find out just how well you can do under pressure. How well
Yeah.
can you adapt when things get like heated, and when people are at your neck and they're like, "Yo, are you done with this and this and that? It's now 10 o'clock. I gave this to you at 7 this morning. And
Mm.
that's just one task that you're given amongst a whole other pile. So
Yep.
it's also kind of like a hazing thing where it's like, you're the newbie, so we're going to bombard you with as much work as possible to see if you're going to crack or not. And a lot of people crack, some people don't, but you really, really feel the heat, like you feel it. So I think when it comes to applying the skills that you learned, it just depends. Definitely. But I think more than anything, I think the most important skill to learn when you're starting off working is build that resilience, because if you can start with the resilience, you can handle almost anything. Even if you find yourself in a situation where you might have to hop from one industry to another, that resilience will carry you, because you'll be able to handle the pressure and learn different skills that you'll be able to apply until you get to a point where you streamline your skills and be like, okay, now this is my lane and I can handle whatever might come my way, because you've built that thick skin if you're willing to learn.
Got you 100%. I like what you said about being able to work under pressure, because resilience training teaches you to work under pressure, and with being able to work under pressure comes also the required skill of multitasking, because
Mm,
you're not going to be given just one task to do during the day and that's your day. You're going to have a number of tasks that you need to do. You're going to need to do admin work. Maybe you're going to have to report to clients. Maybe you're
mm,
also going to have to do some recruitment here and there or some stock taking. So it's
mm,
not just time management, also a very important
mm,
skill that I'm not sure how well varsities train you on time management, but that's one skill that is very important when you start working, because time is of the essence. Time is money, especially in corporate, You
yeah.
have deadlines damn near every day that you must meet, and there are reports that you must compile and give to your boss by the end of the day. And that comes with being able to work under pressure. That comes with being
Mm,
resilient. That comes with being able to manage your time and being able to delegate certain tasks to someone else, which might not be very important to you,
mm.
but so someone else could do them. Those are
That
skills I would say are very important that you don't necessarily come away with in varsity, but
yeah.
you learn while you are working. You were going to
Mm.
say something?
Yeah, I was just gonna add on a little bit. It also teaches you, or not really teaches you, but it puts you in a position where sometimes where, well, like if you're new in the working world, where it tests if you're going to uphold certain boundaries. So for example, if you're an
Mm-hmm.
intern or a newbie, you're going to get bombarded with paperwork, with everything that nobody else wants to do, right? But then that
Yeah.
also might come with some certain demeaning things like get me coffee, clear the table, stuff like that. And when that happens, it puts you in a position where you're like, is this allowed? Like, should they be asking me to do this? Is this in my job description? But the point is,
Yeah,
you're not,
yeah.
that doesn't matter. You're here to prove yourself. And it's kind of unfortunate, but at the same time, it's a test. It's like, are you going to be willing to do whatever it takes? And a lot of young people might not be willing to do that. Because I remember in my experience, my very first gig, bro, I will never forget this. I was like, I would do the admin and everything, and I would like do all the paperwork, etc. But then there would also be that get the coffee and clear the whatever, what I get the cups. Oh, they like, and it was demeaning, but it's like it was interesting because it's like it's a test of, are you gonna be willing to do this? Are you gonna be able to swallow your pride and actually show face and show that you're willing to perform for the company? Because at the end of the day, in that first gig, you want to make an impression, more than anything else, but you also want to learn and you want to acquire skills, etc. So yeah, that's all I just wanted to add there on your point, Ox.
100%. And what about you, Raz? What do you think?
Yeah, so I know the traditional rule they usually say in varsity, and I heard it a lot also my first year of work, where they say you're only going to use 20% of what you've learned at varsity in the workspace. And I'd also get that a lot in my first year of work. But I think I'd like to move more to Dundima's point, because in reality, after working for some time, I realized that it's more like you will eventually use those skills in the education you learned, but over time. So in your first year of work, It's like Bandira saying, they're more testing your character. They're testing what type of person are you. Are you actually going to survive in the industry? Because they're going to be sending you for coffee. They're going to be sending you to go fetch their files in the car, and also still bombarding you with admin and work and deadlines. And you need to meet all of these targets. So it's more than testing. Is this person actually ready for the workspace? Can this person take all of the drama, all of the deadlines? And if you get through that phase and you show them that, look, I'm here. It's not just about the school. It's not just about submitting the deadlines. I'm here to be at work. I'm present. In most cases, things go well, and you should develop from there. So now, man, I think first year of work, people should look at more just trying to learn the industry they're in. Just trying to learn the industry. Take it like, you know what? I'm new in this industry. I don't know anything, and I'm just here to learn everything. Take it like a learning experience.
Yeah. It's a learning curve at the end of the day, and it's also your initiation into the work world, bro. Like, welcome to real life, you know? And money management and also knowing how to handle your bills is a very important skill that you don't necessarily learn in varsity, but once you get out into the real world, you need to learn how to do that properly. And another underrated skill is, I would say, communication. You need to know who to talk to. You need to know how to talk, how to get your point across, you know, because there will be some aspects or some times or some moments where you will be asked to chair a meeting, or your opinion is going to be asked in front of a very important client, and you need to know how to articulate yourself in that situation. So having interpersonal skills, being an effective communicator, and there are great courses. There are great courses in terms of learning how to communicate. You know, I was fortunate to enroll in a free course, McKinsey and Company. McKinsey and Company's, I forget the name of it, but I graduated from that course, and they have very effective strategies on how to communicate, how to paint a picture and tell a story in front of a board, how to solve problems, because problem solving is also a very important skill that you must know, you must be able to have when you are in corporate. And then speaking about work and staying on this topic of education, what about the unemployed graduates in our country, right? Like, we have a lot of our peers, you know, who are sitting at home, who have went to varsity, got the degree, sacrificed a lot of their time, their parents' money, and their energy with nothing to show for it but just a piece of paper, and they're sitting at home discouraged. Like, what do you say for those individuals, you know, who are discouraged right now and might are feeling that I spent all this time and think I have nothing to show for it?
Yo, where do you even begin with that? Because we've all been there at some point, and
Yeah.
it's rough. And it's a multifaceted issue. As we all know that there's no single cause. There are
Yeah.
causes that are personal. There are causes that are beyond us. But at the same time,
Yeah.
and we don't want to be like we're preaching as if we have all the answers, as if like our lives are perfect. I would just implore people to just not quit. You know, don't quit. Try and figure out a new way. But also, I think one that isn't emphasized enough is try to find the most cost-effective way, you know, because I think a very common trend is that when people go through the university system and then let's say their degree didn't quite get them the return on investment that they wanted, they tend to decide to go back and do it again. And then that means you're spending another tens of thousands, you know, you're spending more tens of thousands of rands trying to fix or to try and get yourself into a better position, only ending up, or rather, let me say, you end up in the same position of uncertainty, you know. So try and find a more cost effective way. I mean, there are online courses that you can take to sort of build upon your skills little by little, you know, in the most effective or most affordable way possible, so that you don't find yourself back to square one. But at the same time, I think families need to also be understanding and supportive, you know, because we understand the pressure and the judgment that can even come from that, you know, you've been through the process and then now clearly, and it's like, well, what now? Like, what are you gonna do? You know, what's your plan? So yeah, it's a difficult situation, but at the same time, I think just try and find the most cost-effective solution and rely on the support of your family and those around you. You know, no man is an island. You can figure this out eventually, but you do need support to get it done.
100%, bro, 100%. And like, you touched on everything that I also wanted to say, but yeah, I think the most important thing is not giving up, you know. I've been there, you know. I've been there, and it's rough, you know. There are dark times where you have the worst kinds of thoughts because nothing is coming in and you're discouraged. But giving up is not an option, because once you give up, you put yourself in a worse position. You sink deeper into a space that you don't want to be in, and seeking help, seeking guidance from people you trust, seeking support as well. Maybe a friend that you trust, but just don't stop putting yourself out there. There's no formula for this thing, Job hunting is a job in itself, and it's something that you must dedicate your time every day to doing. Don't let a day go by without applying for jobs, There are great resources online, like LinkedIn is a great resource to go find a job. Glassdoor is another one. Indeed is another one. And with LinkedIn, you'll find other like-minded professionals who are more than willing to give great advice in terms of navigating your way to finding a job, and also just general career guidance and advice that they can give you. I'd say like stay resilient, and just learn from other people's mistakes as well, because you'll find that some people put themselves in a position where they can't really get themselves out of the career choice that they made, and they're stuck there and they're unsatisfied. So take as much advice as you can from people that you trust and you look up to before you commit to a long-term career where you might find that you don't want to do this anymore. And with that being said, oh yeah, before I move on, like I just want to get Raz's take, and then we'll just move on to our next topic.
Okay. No, man, just to wrap it up quick with that one. When it comes to unemployment with graduates, I think we've spoken a lot in the previous episodes regarding issues affecting South African unemployment, and even read out a few stats. So like Udandira said, that is affected by many things. It's not just one thing that affects us having unemployed graduates. But I just want to say to the graduates who are unemployed, look, guys, we've all been there. Everyone, every now and then, loses a job. It does happen. And we know it is a very dark and sad space to be in. But what I'd say is, if right now you're a graduate, you're unemployed, like you said, bro, speak to people, register on LinkedIn, try message people and departments you'd like to see yourself in. Take that try. You don't know what they're gonna say. Also with graduates, I think that's another issue that we have in South Africa with graduates being picky in the type of jobs they want to work. I think if you're a graduate, I know you got let's assume you've got a business degree. If the only job you can get is to be a cleaner at a bakery, do it. You'll get another job from there. In most cases, you get a job from a job. So all I'm saying is, like, graduates, please stop being picky with jobs, because I know that happens a lot in South Africa, and I know that's more of a thing of people not wanting to be seen in a certain way by the public. But at that point, it's not really about the public; it's more about yourself, your future, what you want to do. So please, man, guys, tomorrow it's Monday. Wake up, do what you can. Do what you can with what you have.
Pride
You
won't
gotta
feed
do.
you.
Pride won't feed you, and never be ashamed of your hustle. Like, no one is gonna feed you when you're broke. I will tell you that.
Sure.
The world is very cruel when you're broke. Trust me. And so moving on to the next topic, but still staying on like varsity and whatnot. Very sad story happened over the past week. A varsity student, 30-year-old varsity student from Wits University, Olorato Mongale, was brutally murdered. Still a shocking story that we all heard of, and very upsetting as well. And it's something that we all would like to touch on in terms of just the brutality towards violence against women and children in this country. It's unacceptable, first and foremost. It's always shocking, It's like we haven't learned from the death of Uyinene. Like, this is still happening, and it's something that is really, really shocking. Like I said, I would just like to get the guys' opinion on this. Like, where are we going wrong when it comes to this?
Yeah, where do we even start with that one? It's a social issue, but it's also a judicial issue. I mean, currently, I think the SA crime conviction rate is sitting at 6%. 6,
Crazy.
You lied, Andira. 6%.
Crazy.
And please,
No, it's fine.
I just mean, like, I want to be wrong about this, but like, I think we're sitting at 6%.
Okay, sure.
So in terms of the developments of what has happened, I do like that the police have clearly shown that they're putting in work, and they're trying to, actually serve justice, because as much as we can talk about how we want to see more being done, and we want to see more arrests when it comes to gender-based violence and violence in general in this country, but the point I'm getting at is, do these perpetrators stay behind bars? Because what's the point
Yeah.
if you're gonna arrest if they're going to see or if they're going to be arrested? The bigger question is, are they gonna stay behind bars? Because what's the point of taking these predators off the streets only to release them a year later? So I'm just happy that there's some real solid work that seems to be done in response to this issue that unfortunately plagues us as a country every single day. It's an everyday thing. Every single day we see this happening. And it stems from so many different things. There is no excuse for it. There's no justification for
Yeah.
it. There are only causes for it. And I would just like to see more conviction. And can these people who prey on the innocent and the defenseless stay where they deserve to be? Because when I look at the
Yeah.
conviction rate, man, as much as I'm saying that I'm happy that a lot of work has been done in order to serve justice, when you look at the larger picture, it's like, hey, I don't know, man. It's like we're fighting uphill. Every year we're fighting uphill with this issue.
Yeah, 100%,
Hey,
bro. Yeah, go on, Raz.
so Dandira, I went to go quickly check that for you, and it seems like he's right, dude. Here, quick 2 sentences. So basically, it's saying South Africa's conviction rate for serious crimes is significantly low, with a considerable number of cases not resulting in convictions. For instance, a Law Commission report found that only 6 out of every 100 cases tracked resulted in a non-conviction after 2 years. So I think Dandira's right with the 6%, which is very bad. We're talking about
Crazy.
out of all the crimes that are happening, only 6%. That's not even half. But okay,
Crazy.
that's crazy. Yeah. So okay. Yeah. So yeah, with this whole GBV thing, dude, for me, I don't know anymore because this is like Dandira's saying. It's an uphill battle because on a general level, women are just always scared. Women are always scared, asking you if she's walking. Let's say she's walking home. She'll ask you to please walk her or please walk her to the safest area. At the workspace, women may tell you that, listen, man, I don't feel safe around this particular individual because of 1, 2, 3. So it's on all levels, in the workspace, at home, on the streets. So like you're saying, it's sad. And, you look at these things because when we look at the woman on social media, you look at friends, they post these things. They post how they hurt about what's been happening to the woman, and you don't know how to feel now because all of the women on your status are all sad because of this particular incident that happened. I think I was looking so with this thing, I was looking at the stats around this just to see what's actually happening, to read deeper into this matter. I was actually quite shocked. I'll read you guys 4 sentences. It's shocking information, actually. So here's what they're saying. So they're saying, here's a more detailed look at the GBV in South Africa, the prevalence and impact. A national study found that 3.1% of women aged 18 and older had experienced physical violence in their lifetime. Nearly 40% of women in South Africa experienced lifetime violence, according to a SHRC study as cited by Lisa Vetten. 51% of women in South Africa say they have experienced GBV, and 76% of men say they have perpetrated GBV at one stage in their lives. 1 in 5 women report experiencing violence at the hands of a partner. That is the current GBV stats in South Africa.
What the hell, bro?
It's a broken society.
Now, if you look at that, dude, that's
dark, bro. That is so dark.
Yeah. So
it's an indication, gents,
I think
that the society is broken. There's something very, very wrong at the grassroots level. Very, very wrong.
Yeah, very wrong, bro. Very wrong. And it's a complex issue that, like, not all 3 of us can do by ourselves, can address by ourselves. We need professionals who are experienced in dealing with this type of work, to which we need to look up to, because the best we can do right now is to bring forth the conversation, get the dialogue started and see how we can just come together and come up with ideas and solutions in order to prevent this, however we can, because at the end of the day, we're 3 men, we're 3 men, we have relations with women, we do our best to be gentlemen at all times, and it seems like whenever this thing happens, it just gives a lot of good men a bad rap, but within reason, because it's like women now can't be safe around men, That's the general vibe, and it's like, sure, not all men are doing this, but she can't help but be scared in the presence of a man she doesn't know like that, and That's just a bad look on our society as a whole. I would like to extend my sincerest and deepest condolences to Olorato's family. I know the gents feel the same way about this because at the end of the day, we're all in this together. We all need each other. We can't go at each other's throats when it comes to this because, two wrongs don't make a right. And I really hope that one day this becomes a thing of the past, like apartheid, because also I just feel like the country or our president needs to declare this thing a state of emergency, because it's too much, bro. It really is too much. And there's something I just wanted to talk about in terms of like varsity and experiences, gents, right? Like, have you ever come across a time like when you're having a conversation with someone and you think to yourself that, hey, lo mjita lo uyajumpa uba akayanga varsity. This nigga did not go to varsity. This nigga only ended at matric.
I'm not gonna mention any. I get that.
Man, like, and you sometimes lose bambe in disbelief as to what just came out of this person's mouth. You're like, dog, did you really just say that? Like, I don't know. It's just like sometimes you're from a different world, man. I don't know.
Yeah, like, yo,
I don't
dude.
know.
Like,
Hey,
you're
yo,
trying to have a substantial conversation, but just like you're hearing this nigga's perspective and you're like, yo, what the fuck? Like,
yo,
come on, bro.
And you can just tell
yeah.
that he said it. He said it because he assumed we're gonna be cool with it, and it's like, nah, go with it. Dog.
Aye,
Like, this ain't it.
yo, gents,
What about you, Ray?
quick question. Dude, I actually want to ask you guys something. So I was watching Piano Pulse. Piano Pulse, for those who don't know, is like a podcast where they just purely talk about piano, the industry, how it's growing, and so forth. So they raised the question this week. I was like, I should actually ask the gents how they feel about this. So the question was basically they were saying no, Amapiano is getting boring. They're like, people are getting bored of Amapiano. The question I want to ask you guys was, do you guys think Amapiano is still going to be around 10 years from now? Why I'm asking this is because right now, if you look, piano's dominating industry in terms of lifestyle, partying, clubs, and all of that. But in music, there's phases. We've had Deep House. Deep House had this era. We've had Kwaito in South Africa that had its era. So there's many genres of music in South Africa that were running clubs and the setup at that time, and it died out.
Yeah.
Do you feel the same is going to happen with piano, or do you feel like piano 10 years from now will still be in the game?
Can I take
Who
that?
would still be relevant to people 10 years from now?
Can I take that? Like,
It's open to.
this is what I'll say, right? There's always a generational sound that presides over the times we live in, When we were in varsity, what was really popping? Boom, ne? And we thought boom was here to stay. And then not long after that, Amapiano came through. And Amapiano is a fusion of deep house, fusion of the Kwaito sound from the 90s back then, and the current commercial sound of house. And you have guys like Maporisa, Kabza the Small, Kelvin Momo, who are Demtuda as well, who are really pushing the sound forward. I feel like maybe it has plateaued to a certain extent, but I don't think it's gonna go away anytime soon. Maybe it'll take on another form, like how we've seen hip hop, like take another form in terms of trap. There's even now drill, It'll take on another form on its own, but for it to essentially go away, no, I don't think so. It's done too much of an impact in our country and the world for it to ever go away like that. So I don't think so.
So you feel like it's because the reality is piano didn't just influence like music; it influenced the culture, how people dress,
Exactly.
how people club now, how people want to present themselves, what happens in terms of the camera action. So I hear you, man. It influenced too much of the culture for it to go. It may take
To go
another
away,
form.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay, but
How
Dandiro,
about
it's
you,
your
Indira?
turn. It's your turn.
Yeah, I agree with what Walks because what I was gonna get at is the same thing that Walks pointed out is that piano will never go away. It'll simply evolve. It'll take on another form as the years go by. And the reason why I think it has like a sense of longevity is because compared to Igom, like no offense, but to me Igom just felt like a trend. It felt like a fad. That's why I think it didn't last as long as it could have. Because it plateaued very quickly, in my opinion. But as compared to piano, Amapiano The reason why I think it's endured for as long as it has is because it actually seems like it takes talent and actual musical chops to actually make a piano record and to make a hit song. Because
Yeah.
especially this goes into how, as Walk said, Amapiano is a blend of Equaito as well as deep house and the very musical genres, that rely on a strict sense of musicality. Like you need to be able to make music, like beautiful music, in order to make a mapiano. And if you don't, everyone can tell. You can't just make some pop beat on a
You
mapiano.
can't, sure.
And no, you can't. You could with the Grom. That's the funny thing. With the Grom, you could make an average song and make it become a hit. You can't do that with a mapiano, in my opinion, as far as I can.
Nah, we're not shitting on Bob, guys. Bob goes
Yeah,
in.
no, shout out,
No.
shout out, dog.
It had its
Gomes lit.
time. It had
Gomes
its
lit.
time. It really had its
Yeah.
time, but I told you,
Yeah.
it just couldn't evolve any further, which was what Amapiano I think could do. Amapiano will take
Yeah.
will always be there, I think.
Yeah, but this was a nice topic, Jen. And shout out to Distraction Boys, man. Y'all made my varsity years like lit. Like, yo,
Hey, bro.
shout out Distraction Boys.
Zing,
Shout out
zing,
DJ Tira. Yo, bro. Like, yo, like it Chrome. I remember this one time, Jens. I know I'm going off topic. Like, I remember this one time, right as you were there. Jeez, bro. Metro FM Heatwave, dude. When there was this pair of names. And then they played like house. They played house. And then when the set room pulled up, dog, like Jesus Christ, bro. It felt like I don't take drugs, but for that particular moment, I felt like I was high on ecstasy, bro.
That's the
That's
thing
how
with gold,
intense.
dog. You feel like you're on drugs, bro. That's the
Bro.
thing. It takes you there.
It takes you there, dude. While we're on this joyous mood, gents, I appreciate it, Yeah, man. Football season officially ended yesterday. She won in emphatic fashion. They won the Champions League in emphatic fashion, like 5-0. I did not see that one coming,
I
I
told
was very
you, bro.
disappointed. I was very disappointed with Inter Milan, bro. I'll tell you why, right?
Okay,
I'll
sure,
tell you
sure.
why. I feel like the schedule caught up with them, right? The football schedule caught up with them because they buckled the Serie A, right? They buckled the Serie A. And then I felt like they played their best game against Barcelona. And then when it came to the first 20 minutes of the game, they were rattled, They thought that PSG would treat this game like any other final where the first 10 to 20 minutes, you're feeding each other. So the game is like very slow. Whereas PSG had their foot on the gas from the jump and they just couldn't recover from that. So that was the disappointing thing for me, right? I know I picked them to win. I picked Inter Milan to win and I was very disappointed by that. But kudos to PSG, bro. Like they deserved it, G.
Now, for me, dog, I think, dog, it beats you, dog. Now, for me, dog, I think I just always take the stance of liking to support the underdog, bro. So with that match, I felt like Inter, everyone was on that tip that Inter's going to beat PSG. PSG doesn't stand a chance. It's an obvious win. And I was like, you know what? Then I'm going to go for PSG. And yeah, they lived up to the game and they really wanted it. They were way, way more hungry than Inter Milan, dog. So,
Way more
sometimes
hungry,
in
bro.
life, dog, attitude is everything, bro.
Attitude is everything. And like in those type of games, form counts for nothing, bro. It's like who wants it more on the day?
Exactly, dog.
It's about who wants it more on the day, bro.
Yeah.
Like, and do you know what's sad, bro? Can I tell you? Like Mbappe left PSG for free, right? To go to Real Madrid in hoping to win the Champions League because PSG the season he leaves, they win it, bro. The season he leaves, they win it, bro. Like,
Probably did it for him. They're like, we're gonna show him.
We're
We can
gonna
do
show
this for
him, dog. And shout out to Dembele, bro. I feel like that's the one person I'm really happy for because Dembele was sensational coming up, when he was a teenager in Dortmund, and then Barcelona was going through a real crisis around, let's say, from 2018, 2019, when they were like really, really, really garbage, and they bought Dembele for a very high fee, and he was still very young at the time. And they put this pressure on him that he was going to be the savior. This is when Messi was gone. This is post-Messi era, right? And Dembele was like, he was put under pressure. The spotlight was on him, and he cracked because he just didn't have the experience. They bought him for a very high fee, and there was so much expected from him. And the media was quick to count him out. So for him to make this comeback and be the best player in the Champions League the entire season, and for him to actually win the player of the season, he didn't even score yesterday, but he immaculate defense. He was crazy on attack. Like, I'm just happy for him. And if he wins the Ballon d'Or this season, bro, I'll be very happy.
Shout out.
Shout out Dembele, man. Yeah, like, is there anything else you want to touch on, Dima? You know, Raz and I are football guys. You know, you're a violent dude. You know, so
Ah, man.
Ring.
I fully back Charles Oliveira, but hey, man, I don't think he's gonna make it, to be honest, bro, because Ilya is undefeated currently.
Yeah.
He's got 10 losses. He's had a winning streak because he's one of those fighters who he came from having like a bad streak early in his career. Like he lost a lot of fights. You know,
yeah,
he almost quit the UFC. But then something happened, man. He just came back. Well, I think what he says is the birth of his daughter.
His daughter, eh?
Like set a flame under him, and then he dyed his hair, and then he became this unstoppable force, bro. So, but compared to Ilya, Ilya has put down a lot of formidable people, bro. So I want Charles. Come on.
He put down a lot of people. Come on,
But
bro.
yeah, you know what I mean. But like, yeah, like I fear for Charles, man. But I really want him to win. If he could win, bro, that would make my year. I don't want to lie.
Yeah, that would be amazing. And like sticking with UFC, like I don't really follow UFC like that. For someone who'd want to get into knowing the sport a bit more, like what would be the first point of reference you would advise, Ndima?
First point of reference. I think if someone really wants to get into the sport, I think start with 1 FC, because 1 FC is another fight promotion. It's based in Asia, so it's run by what's his name again? Chatri something, can't remember his last name, but it's predominantly in Asia. So it doesn't have all the drama and the trash talking. It's just strictly about the martial arts. It's strictly about the fight. What do you bring? You know, it doesn't have the flashy Conor McGregor stuff and the insult. It's very much honor based. So if you want to start getting into martial arts or watching combat sports, I think that would be a good place to start because it focuses more on physical prowess and who's the best, you know. And then I think then you can work your way to the UFC where it's much more braggadocious and it's much more like there's a lot of drama and trash talking in the that you can watch from back in the day, like your classic Khabib versus McGregor, your Rampage Jackson versus John Jones. Like there's a lot of classic fights that people can watch.
And with that being said, this is how we're wrapping up this third episode. I thoroughly enjoyed this one, gents. I don't know about you two, but I thoroughly enjoyed this one. Very dope episode. And like, you can find us on the socials at _not another pod on Instagram. That's where we're like really popping. Don't have much followers there, but we popping, I promise you. We're also on Facebook, you know, TikTok, we're on there as well. And we just hope to see you on the flip side. And thank you once again for joining us. This is Sipo Okwana, my two bros, Ndima and Raz. Like, this doesn't happen without them, you know. And yeah, man, peace and love to everyone. And yeah, all the best.
Thanks for listening, everyone. And get the strap.
Yeah, thanks for tuning in. Yeah, get the strap.
Get the strap. Cheers, guys.